Oh, I'm so glad you added that, Fabi. I mean, both of those excellent answers, and that was I had some prepared stuff, and I'll go through it quickly. But you touched on two different aspects. There is no one best answer. To Jay's point, it's very hard to find the Ivanhoes of the world. In that case, I think the reason the opportunity was there was the jurisdiction risk. Maybe was what kept the price down. But you had best project, best people, bam. Like that's to Jay's point. Like it's in hindsight, it was a no-brainer. On Jay's point on Borimian, I think I don't want to go into details, but I think he did a very thorough answer of why it's so difficult. And I actually was a little surprised that Jay even preferred the project a little more. But it's a good example of that. I wasn't expecting him to say that, but I think that will be a really interesting one for us to follow up on later. On Fabi's point on Royal Road is a great example, because I was going to say I tend to see there's always a premium for the people for smaller plays. A lot of prospect generators are that way, but there's definitely not a premium for Royal Road right now, which is a great reason for why I'm personally interested in it. And I even like it that he's moved Tim Coughlin and the team are moving into Nicaragua as well. And I see Nicaragua as an emerging jurisdiction. I think both Colombia and Nicaragua are interesting. So he's done that's where you're very early stage, but you want to ride those people. But I see too many companies lately, in my opinion, that get too much of a premium for the people and not as much necessarily for the projects. And there's two key points I wanted to make. One, like once you're onto the deposit, sometimes the deposit's so good it's hard to screw up. Now that's hard. We're not sure on Borimian yet. That's still to be determined. But I really feel related to that we don't think enough about people that are good. They're good people, but not necessarily great. So it's the whole using the American grading system. When you have A people, it's always great. But what about B people? Through my experience, I think a lot of people could be considered, B class people, where they might be missing an element. They might be missing the promotional side, or they might be missing, just the experience. But they're definitely B, and they're not C, D, or F, which is where you're getting into the murky world, like some of the scammers or serious flaws. I think it's a lot harder to actually differentiate between the B's and the C's and the D's and the F's than it is from the A's. So you're more of a sure thing when you stick with the best people, but there's a lot of opportunity when you find the B people, but you find the A project, the best people. And I'm not even just talking about Robert, but also the exploration crew. But that was one of the best ways to make money in the 90s, where you had the A plus project, but you had more of the B people. And I'll just bring up one other example compared to Ivanhoe. Like Jay mentioned mod resources earlier. To me, that's the quintessential of what I'm looking for, where I think those might even be A people involved, but they're definitely perceived more as B people because they're definitely not as well known in North America. There's Botswana itself is not that well known for copper discovery, but I'm betting on this becoming an A plus project. But it's okay for it to be more the B people, and definitely not the C, D, or F. And maybe it will get to tier 1 as we discussed earlier. But it just goes to show depending on where you are in the size of the company and what about the people in the project, you could answer this different ways. But it's one of those questions I think we'll keep coming back to, and I think both of you had really good answers, even though they went in different directions.
Yeah, can I just add one more point to this? I this is really great, and I love the responses you guys are giving, and that's the thing that we're always looking for. We're looking for the best bang for the buck kind of thing, where either you have an A project and B people, or a B project and A people, and that's kind of where the biggest upside is. And Nick brought up mod resources, where the recent discoveries that they're making, this could very well turn out to be a A plus project, and you have less heralded people running the company, maybe they are B caliber people, and this could really, really work out. And an alternative, I guess the other side of this would be, a really good example as well, I think, is Orca Gold, because it's not bid up, but the people are proven A people, and the projects are arguably maybe B projects, since Sudan is relatively underfollowed, and nobody's really hyping it up or anything like that, and the Ivory Coast projects are just starting up. And maybe Nick in particular wants to comment on Orca Gold as an example of one of those opportunities where you're getting really, really good people, but maybe the projects aren't exactly world class tier one or A projects.
So yeah, the people, I definitely think A plus, and they're not recognized for that. Sudan, it's definitely more of a B. It's a very solid project, but I would put that in the B category. What I really feel is the game changer here is going into the Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire. This is A plus potential, and I've made a video on it. Of course, I'm biased, but really, that's the quintessential early stage where they have a little bit of results, but no, a lot of these are going to be drilled for the first time. They're around all of Randgold's projects, where Randgold is like the highest level you get in African gold. And so I do think that the jurisdiction is a bit of an issue there, but really if you think about it in terms of why is it not being talked about, I think Sudan has just dominated the story, and I'll just make a quick point. Credit to Robert Friedland and Ivanhoe and all of them. They've turned Democratic Republic of Congo into like one of the best places in Africa. There's people who believe that, and then there's also Nevsun in Eritrea, and I know that Rick Rule and some other people have really talked that one up. Honestly, why is Sudan worse than either of those? I really can't figure it out. But that's a perception side of things. And to Jay's point earlier, there's not enough mining in Sudan yet. And so that's a big thing that's holding it back. But I really think the Ivory Coast part has flipped this story. We haven't had the exploration yet, but in terms of prospectivity, that is A plus prospectivity, and Ivory Coast has definitely moved up the list on the Fraser Institute. And I think it's just a matter of time. Now, I don't think there's going to be fireworks immediately, but yeah, I mean, Jay, it's a good one to bring up because there's a lot of good things going for it, and both people and project level.
Yeah, and I bring it up because we're always looking for the sweet spot where you get the most bang for your buck. And if you're going for the A plus people, and these stories are getting bid up significantly, then you're really chasing the markets and you're not getting in at the best valuations. But sometimes there are these under the radar kind of stories, and I think Orca is just a good example of that, because you are getting an A plus team with proven history and track record of success, and for whatever reason the company's just underfollowed, and there's not much hype into it. It's only about a 40 million market cap, so yeah, the valuation is not absurd or anything like that. But these are kind of the stories that we're all looking for. And as Fabi brought up, Royal Road Minerals, it's another one with proven people, but that's like a micro cap. That's probably less than 5 million market cap or something. So
between 5 and 10, but yeah, around there.
Yeah, yeah. So these are the type of plays where that we're kind of keeping our eyes and ears open to, where it's kind of like there's a lot of prospectivity there, whether it's the people or the projects. And ideally, I think in both cases, you want to have a combination of A and A, or A and B somewhere in there, and that's kind of for us, I think it's safe to say that's what piques all our interest in these early stage exploration stories.
Yeah, let me just wrap this up because I need to go now. I don't think anybody should be put off by B players in charge of good projects, because at the end of the day, if we look at all the A players, how did they become A players? Well, it was a major discovery. It was a major project that they took to, I don't know, maybe sail to a major, or maybe into production, or whatever it is. So just because somebody doesn't have a big gold star in their resume doesn't mean that that project won't be the one that puts that big star. So I think there's a lot to be said about people who were not stars until they had a really good project.